The younger brothers tend to be the creative ones, the thoughtful and feminine ones, the ones that think up tall tales. It's not just me. Most younger brothers I've met are like me. In fact, the first two people I would ever consider real friends that were my older brother were also younger brothers. While I've never envied my brother's life, he's always been the go-getter. At 16, he got a job at the Chillicothe YMCA as a lifeguard and swim instructor. He was well trained and had good rapport with the children that he gave swimming lessons to, but he mostly used the job as a way to support his bibliophile habit at the pool, which was usually pretty empty. The job didn't exactly require a keen eye. With my mom returning to work at this time and my dad busy at the body shop just around the corner, my brother was also babysitting me in addition to kinda watching the pool. The pool was startlingly quiet about 90% of the time. It was also very blue and moody. The chlorine presence I used to get at the public pool was condensed due to the pool being inside. Sometimes, I look at the waves in the empty pool and wonder if they were caused by ghosts. My brother assured me that it took a long time for the waves to go away. I'd even mess around in the showers for a while to see if the pool would settle down in my absence, but it never did. Even if it was just subtle, the waves never died or took a day off. Then came 3 frequent visitors. They showed up the same day. Before then, I was basically alone with my own private pool. My brother never really had time for me back then. His face was always half buried in a book, and his mind was in no mood for a conversation. It was in the showers that I met the first 2 visitors. One was Pierce Santiago. He was a Cuban, the first Cuban I ever met. He was a bit older than I. I was about 9, he was about 12, and he already had the faint makings of a mustache. When I first met him, he was grinning and squinting his eyes like a maniac while tightly gripping a bottle of root beer above his head. The other was Swimming Coyote. That wasn't his real name, but he refused to tell me his real name, so I was stuck calling him Coyote. He was younger than me, pale as the dickens too. When I first met him, he was buck naked eating shredded jerky from those little pucks like they used to sell at the drive-thru stores. He had no concern for his nudity. Coyote didn't talk much, but he spoke fine when he did. Pierce, on the other hand, spoke a lot, but most of it didn't make sense to me. Both were wired and full of energy. That day, they found a bottle of Head & Shoulder shampoo in the shower, so they turned on all the shower heads and sprayed the shampoo everywhere, and then they took turns sliding full force into the wall by kicking off the opposite wall. It looked dangerous, but I wasted no time in joining in. The 3 of us had trouble breathing. We were laughing so hard at the pastime we invented, or they invented. After we had our bottoms and lower backs thoroughly bruised, Pierce suggested we go swim some. I wanted to continue sliding around, and I think Coyote didn't have a preference. I let Pierce dictate the actions, however, so I would be accepted, but Coyote was about to walk out of the locker room without his swim trunks on, so I said he should go put them on. With Pierce and I in the pool room, I saw the last new visitor. He was an older man with tanned skin that almost looked like red clay besides not being smooth. His hair was largely black but peppered with white strands, each standing out like a rosebud in a field of dying green weeds. His hair was dry, as was the similar hair on his chest, as he rested floating against the edge of the shallow side of the pool, right next to a glass of slightly gold liquid. Beside that was the fancy bottle I presumed it came from. He had a very mournful look on his face, as he would occasionally sip from his rock glass. Pierce introduced this man as Ramirez Santiago, his father. He had a strange smell to him. Over the years, I've come to describe it as witch hazel soaked in newspaper. While around him, that's all I could smell. Not even the chlorine. Despite his initial expression, upon seeing his child make a new friend, his face lit up in a smile and he gave me a hearty laugh. He said, "Nice to meet you, Harrison. Could you do me a favor and keep the splashes on the deep end?" I nodded and replied, "Yes, sir." Pierce and I started diving to the bottom, racing each other back up. but I had yet to see Swimming Coyote actually swim. In fact, he didn't come out of the showers at all. When I mentioned this to Pierce, he said that Coyote comes and goes. When it was getting late, Mr. Santiago picked up his bottle and glass, and Pierce quickly followed him to the showers. When it was again just my brother and I, he said that he was glad I was making new friends, but that I should stay away from that man. I took in that information, but quickly corrected my brother, telling him I made 2 new friends. Coyote wants to show you something. I didn't really understand what Pierce said until I saw Coyote, but as mentioned, that was typical. Pierce practically drugged me into the sauna area. I had never been in there, but Coyote was sitting on the wooden bench, again nude. I was starting to realize Coyote loved nudity. Pierce also stripped down. Pierce said I needed to be naked for it to work, for Coyote to show me. I asked what he'd show me, but they refused to say unless I got naked. So I gave in to peer pressure. I mean, come on, it wouldn't be a story if I didn't. I figured we'd be fine, as no one comes to the YMCA, much less the sauna. I stripped down hesitantly, but I didn't really fear size comparison as no one hit full-on puberty yet. Pierre sat down on the bench and I followed suit. We just sat there for a while. And nothing happened. I started to think they were pranking me. Started to think that Coyote was silent because he hated me, and maybe Pierce was putting on an accent to mess with me. I got up and started to get clothed. Pierce said that it doesn't happen some days, but that we would try again. I said I was going swimming and Pierce followed me. Covered in sweat exiting the sauna, my brother saw me and Pierce. He told me the sauna wasn't for children, and that I shouldn't go in there again. I was thinking, if it's just some dude sitting naked, yeah, I don't want any part of that. While playing basketball at the Y's court one day, Pierce joined me and we had a nice game going. The honeymoon phase of our friendship was over and I started to see him and Coyote as people to hang out with, rather than role models to aspire to, I guess. Sleeping on it a few nights, I wisely decided to forget about the weirdness in the sauna. As we played our friendly game, we watched a group of about 6 adults play a very heated game of basketball with occasional pushing and shoving. 3 of them were white and 3 of them were black. There was a bunch of tension in the court, so I suggested we swim. Pierce agreed, and once in the showers, he said he was uncomfortable as well. That's when Coyote showed up and nodded at Pierce, smiling ever so slightly. It was like he was deeply satisfied with something. It took way more convincing than the last time, but I again sat down nude in the sauna. I was a child after all. You need to burn your fingers on the stove a few more times before the information takes as a kid. I was sitting next to Coyote, who gently placed his hand on mine when I was in the middle of being bored and fearful. Relax, and it will happen faster. It will happen today no matter what. The touch should have made me tense up, but there was a warm, soothing nature to his palm. It did happen. Like a slow, knowing descent into sleep. The world began to fade, and I witnessed what I can only describe as dreams. I saw people doing things, almost like stick figures, but they felt like they were real people at the time. They were fishing, hunting animals, collecting fruits and berries and such. They danced and they cooked food. They traded clothes and bows and arrows and sculptures. They did all sorts of things. Something about it felt good. I jostled awake and I was drenched in sweat, and Pierce and Coyote were smiling at me like I graduated college or something. I felt nude until I realized I was, and my hands and my feet were cold and ached like I didn't have blood in them. There was now a smoky smell in the room. Coyote said, "Now you know. We should leave for now, though." It was later that night that I talked to my brother about swimming Coyote. I got very indignant that he thought he was an imaginary friend. I explained that Pierce knew him as well, and my brother made fun of me. My mom had the task of calming me down, a hard task, I must say. I could be a great kid on my best days, but I must admit, when I was in a mood, I was rather challenging and difficult. I didn't talk to my brother for a week after that, but I did continue to go to the pool and see my friends. But it was only then I realized that swimming Coyote never once swam when I was around. He was also always nude in the lockers, in the showers, in the sauna. No matter what I tried, I couldn't coax him out of those areas. Sometime during that week I wasn't talking to my brother. Coyote took us into the sauna again for another dream. It was much the same as the last dream. But this time, from time to time, the little stick people would fight. The stick figures would lay on the ground after being attacked. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought at the time. It felt so distant and imaginary. It was entirely pleasant, as I was escaping my brother. The last time I entered the sauna, I didn't realize anything was off. It was how it always was, bonding with my friends and escaping my family. Coyote was eating shredded jerky again, and Pierce and I walked into the sauna for what we were calling our dream sessions. Then Coyote promptly dropped his snack and slammed the sauna door shut. He jammed a broom in the loop door handle, preventing us from moving it. We banged on the door and yelled as loud as we could. We wanted to know why Coyote would do this to us. It wasn't funny, and the heat, the intense heat and the steam that was 5 times hotter than normal made us fear it wasn't a practical joke. Not that such a joke would ever be funny. We got no response from outside, but we tried the door on the opposite side of the sauna. The door we never opened. It was locked. I obviously survived despite the intense pain and inability to breathe due to the fumes. But I watched every last second of Pierce's life. The end was mercy after all the pain. It was only after his last breath that the door on the other side creaked open. The door I'd never entered. I knew I needed to enter it, as the air coming from it was cool. But something about the black void made me hesitant. Weak, I walked through the door and found a long, dark tunnel, covered in the tile I had seen around the pool. On my journey out of the sauna, I saw dead body after dead body. Nude, cut up, occasionally ripped open. Men and women, children, all with red skin and long black hair. I don't remember how, but I woke up in my brother's car being driven home. I asked about Pierce. My brother didn't know what to say. From his reaction, I knew I didn't dream up what had happened. That was the first time I talked to my brother at all since this Coyote thing began. I didn't ask about Coyote. I didn't bring him up. I didn't think he'd believe me. I asked if I did anything wrong. He said no right as we hit a red light. Sitting up in my seat from my slouched position, I saw the Burger King to my right was partially on fire. I didn't get to attend Pierce's funeral,